You're listening to Batting 1000 with Dale Vermillion, where heavy hitters from mortgage, real estate, and business share their secrets for lasting success. With your host, industry icon, Dale Vermillion.
All right, welcome back to our 2023 episode 2 of Batting 1000, where we interview the heavy hitters in business, in mortgage, in finance, in just the places that all of us want to grow and learn. And today I have a very, very special guest. Super honored to have Harry Wilson with us today. Harry is the CEO of a company called Limitless Minds. They are an amazing company that literally is working every day on helping people to perform at a level that they've never performed at before. Harry was 12 years as a leader in industry. He has been the CEO now for Limitless Minds since 2018. He's also a Division I athlete, multi-athlete, 2 different sports you're in, which is really cool, and come from a whole family of that. You may recognize his brother is Russell Wilson, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos and previously Seattle Seahawks. So Harry comes from a storied tradition of athletes and just people who think in a very powerful, amazing way. We are so honored to have him today. He is a company and a leader that teaches on transformational leadership and authenticity, 2 things we love to talk about. So Harry, welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Dale, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here with you and your audience. It's funny, batting 1,000. If I could have maybe just batted over 300, I might be asked to be playing right now. But I do love baseball and all the analogies that exist within. But yeah. So thanks for the opportunity. It's to be fun.
Well, it's great to have you here. Well, let's dive right in. First thing I want to talk about as we lead in, you come from a family that you, your brother, your sister, all D1 athletes. Obviously, Russell went on to play pro sports. You guys have grown up in a family that certainly nurtured these kinds of things. And I know you talk a lot about your dad. I would love to just open up, share a little bit about kind of your upbringing, the influence your dad had in your life, and what that looked like and how that transformed you to where you're at today as the CEO of a major company that works with huge, huge companies all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yes, my brother and my sister, they really got all the talent. I'm the Cooper Manning of the Wilson family. I'm like the other brother who had a lot of promise, different reasons, injuries, etc. Didn't make it, but I'm happy to live vicariously through both of them. My father, our dad, his name's Harry Wilson as well. He was the 3rd, I'm the 4th. He was a 2-sport athlete in college. He went to Dartmouth, right? So education first. Was an all Ivy League player in football and baseball, and would play briefly for the San Diego Chargers, but he ultimately went to UVA Law School. Was an attorney.
Wow.
Worked at Procter & Gamble for a number of years in Cincinnati. That's where Russell and I were born, and then moved us to Virginia and so on and so forth. He would get sick, and he had some complications with diabetes, and kind of this avalanche of challenges that existed from a health perspective that took him in 2010 at the age of 55. But
sorry to hear that.
No, I mean, but I think it's my dad and my grandfather Harrison Wilson, the junior, were all kind of education was kind of the number one thing, and I had a grandfather who got his PhD back in the 50s as an African American in the 50s, living in Jackson, Mississippi with a PhD was pretty rare. So education's been a part of our yellow brick road we've been kind of traversing for some time and some generations. Our dad's impact on us, and I'm speaking for my brother and my sister, but I can really speak for myself. What my dad did so well that I'm trying to take and provide for my 3 daughters that I have is the ability to kind of create a vision, right? My dad did a really tremendous job of helping us paint our own vision for success and dreaming big, right? And kind of thinking beyond, kind of the parameters that most would kind of try to box us into, both, academically, athletically, relationships, friendships, and how we think about things. So, I mean, I think that he helped create kind of a dream big type of culture, if you will, family culture, that, we continue to try to build and create, for our own families that we've built and certainly the people around us. So, I mean, that's that's just a little bit of my dad. And, certainly we wish he was here, and he's been gone for almost 12 and a half years. And it seems like all the big stuff in life has happened since, but,
Yeah.
hopefully he's been, been able to kind of keep an eye on us and kind of a guardian angel up there. So, yeah.
Little did he know how much his influence would impact. We talk a lot on Batting 1,000 about mentorship, legacy, all of the importance of that and the impact we have on people and everything we do and everything we say every single day. And I know that his influence clearly has an impact on all three of you as his children. And I'm sure your mom had a major play in that too. And now we fast forward, and here you are as the CEO of Limitless Minds. Now let's talk about this, because I think this is really critical for the audience to hear about. I've been a proponent, and the two things that we teach at Mortgage Champions, and the two things we always focus on that we say is the key to your success, is mindset and methodology. If you don't have the right mindset and you don't match it with the right methodology, doesn't matter. You're not going to succeed no matter how much talent you have, because that talent never really comes out if you don't merge those two together. Now, we're really the experts on methodology. You're really the expert on mindset. And one of the things that I want to open with, I've always been a proponent of positive thinking. Guys like Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn have been very influential in my life over the many years that I've studied. But you guys actually teach something called neutral thinking that is absolutely state of the art. It's such a cool concept. I would love for you to talk with our audience about what neutral thinking is, how you guys are changing people's thought process through Limitless Minds and helping them to achieve at levels they've never seen before.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. So I also believe in positive thinking, right? I mean, and we're hopeful for it. I think many of us, if not most of us, aspire to kind of be positive, and most of the books and the podcasts and the things you're going to find, if you're in the airport and you're jumping into the little bookstore, you're going to find a lot of content on positive thinking. What's really interesting is that, what's been commercialized a lot is positive and negative, right? Positive and negative thinking, right? They're opposites. Like, okay, I want to be more positive. How do I stop being so negative? So on and so forth. All that's relevant and real. One of our co-founders, our late co-founder, Trevor Moad, who I encourage any audience listener to check out. He's got, he's author. He's got a couple books out. It Takes What It Takes and Getting to Neutral are two that I would check out, both on audio book and also, live book. But Trevor was one of the world's top thought leaders in the area of mental conditioning and mindset training. He started with elite athletes, right? Folks like individuals like my brother, teams like Nick Saban in Alabama football, helped kind of build a dynasty and a culture around mindset at Alabama. When he was there, he'd meet a couple individuals like Mel Tucker, who's now at Michigan State as a head coach.
Wow.
The back-to-back national champion Kirby Smart at Georgia. And so when Trevor got sick in 2019, he was working at University of Georgia football and Kirby Smart, all around this idea around neutral thinking. And when he was at Alabama with Nick Saban, they realized that, to get these guys to just think blindly positive was a huge leap, right? It was a huge leap. And, whether guys are cynical, whether they come from broken homes, whether they come from, it's hard to kind of carry the grind of a summer camp, all these different things, right? And so what they realized is that there's not a lot of data that supports that positive thinking works. We believe it, and anecdotally, we would trust that positive thinking is good, right? And that it works, certainly better than the alternative. But what's interesting, there is a ton of data that supports that negative thinking works, right, Dale? But the problem is that negative thinking works all the time, and it works negatively, right? And so, and a lot of the data supports that the verbalization of negativity is what weaponizes it against you in multiples, right, exponentially. In fact, there's some data out of Harvard that supports that negativity is 4 to 7 times greater than its brother or cousin positivity, and when it's verbalized, it can be in multiples of 10x on top of that. So the verbalization of negativity is what weaponizes most of us against ourselves, right? In our self-talk and the internal ad campaigns that we create for ourselves. And so when Nick Saban and Trevor worked together to develop this culture around mindset and language at Alabama football, it was all about being less negative, right? Stop saying dumb things out loud, things that are being weaponized against you, right? And that's what they really built a framework around. And even the most cynical could buy into the idea of being more neutral and being less negative. So really, it's what we're doing with organizations, individuals, is we're spending a lot of time reminding them, educating them, talking to them, giving them applicable tools to be less negative, right? And to suggest to go on a negativity diet, if you will, right? Because it's not just what we say, but really it is garbage in, garbage out. So the more social media that I engage with, probably the more negative I'm probably going to be. The more news that I watch on a given day, week, month, quarter, the more negative I'm probably going to be, right? And it doesn't mean that you'd eliminate all these things from your world. Just means that you have to be cognizant of the consequences of these negative sources, and things that you're consuming. So we really kind of put a structure around these things for individuals, teams, organizations around how to really manage negativity. And make kind of your language work for you, and then your behaviors will follow, and then the results will come. So, the last thing I'll say, Dale, and we'll kind of open it up, is just, neutral thinking is more about really about a fact-based solution approach towards problems and challenges, right? What it does for people is it ultimately slows down the velocity of adversity, right? And it kind of helps to build adversity tolerance. And what will allow you to do as a neutral thinker is you can acknowledge the negative. You don't have to ignore it. You don't have to pretend like it doesn't exist. In fact, we're going to ask you to spend some time with that negativity, understand one or two reasons why that happened, that situation happened. Great. Like a doctor would do, let's diagnose why that happened. And then with that diagnosis, let's create a set of solutions, maybe just one solution that it might take to mitigate or eliminate that challenge from happening moving forward. And then from there, as we put those behaviors in place, it gives us the license to be positive, right? At that point, we've now earned the permission to be positive. So it's kind of this judgment-free, fact-based type of approach towards, solving problems and challenges that we're in. And it, ultimately slows down the velocity of that challenge and ultimately increases your adversity tolerance in those moments. So. Yeah.
So I love what you're saying there. It's interesting. I train leaders all over the country, and from C-level to mid-level, all the way down to the frontline leaders. And, constantly, obviously, talking about the importance of having a positive environment, of speaking to your people in positive ways, of making sure that you're encouraging them so that they're thinking right, because people too do tend to lean towards the negative. And one of the things that I talk about all the time is cause and effect. And that's kind of what you were just talking about there with negativity, is that when something bad happens, and many times, the thing that I see, and I'm sure you see this all the time too with leaders and with employees, is things that happen out of their control, they get too hung up about, they get too upset about and too worried about, instead of just saying, I don't have control over that. And what I always try to teach them is it's thinking in a cause and effect mindset. Okay, what happens is we react to the effect instead of really addressing the cause, which is proactive. It's a reactive, proactive mindset where when you have negative things happen, what you really want to do is you want to say, okay, that happened, acknowledge that, it's over, it's done, that's history now. Now we're moving forward. What was the cause? If we fix the root cause, then the effect won't repeat itself most likely in the future. And it leads to a better mindset of how to deal with negativity. So I love how you frame that it's thinking less negatively. We start there instead of, because I hear this all the time from leaders and from loan officers and people I train all over the country. Most common question I get, guess what it is, Harry? How do I stay more positive when we're in a market that's so difficult and rates are up and these things are hard? I say, well, my answer is always, number one, when you have those negative situations, stop, take a minute and think, be grateful for all the things you have in life that you can be grateful for. That always regenerates your attitude back in the right place. But outside of that, you got to just address the negative by identifying the cause and then creating a different activity going forward. Speak a little bit about how you guys have taken your training and your teaching and the things you talk about with how to think properly and how that's impacted people. And a couple, if you can share a couple things, just a couple of specific strategies that people can really apply in order to think in a better way.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was thinking about as I'm writing some notes as you were, given that framework that you just gave is one of the things that we teach is this framework around conscious competence. And really the framework is associated with three other kind of pieces of this. So A lot of us kind of go into situations or the skill set or the industry that we're in. And we start off, maybe we're a couple of years in, maybe we're 18 months in, and we're trying to build this level of competence in what we do, right? And the skill and what it is. And I don't know if you've ever been this as a performer, whether it be in business or sport or otherwise. There's times where you feel like, you know what, I'm not performing well, and I don't know why, right?
Right.
That's like kind of rock bottom from a performer perspective, right? We call that unconscious incompetence, right? I'm not sure. I'm not that great at what I'm doing, and I'm not sure how to get better, right? And that's, hopefully you're there. Some of us might be in different areas, and that's okay, right? There's opportunity to get better, and a lot of that has to do with asking questions and being a constant quest for knowledge and so on and so forth. But that's kind of like rock bottom of this framework, right? Then there's conscious incompetence, where, you know what, I'm not great, I'm not good yet, right? Maybe I'm new, maybe I'm new to the industry, maybe I just moved to a new organization. There's a different way of doing things. I'm not sure if I've got it yet, but I'm really aware of it, right? And I'm seeking to understand. I'm asking the right questions, putting myself around the right people, so on and so forth. And that's okay. That's kind of like a growth mindset kind of area to be in, and there's improvement to be had, right? As long as you know where you're at and have that self-awareness, there's ways to improve. And then there's the last two things are where we see a lot of performers that we work with in this framework. Because we work with a lot of companies with like high performers, some of the best companies in the world, like Johnson & Johnson and Bristol Myers Squibb and AstraZeneca and Amazon and Microsoft, some of these organizations. Wow. These are our companies. So these organizations are kicking ass, right? They're really strong. Yeah. They got performers. And so what we see a lot in this group that we impact a lot is this unconscious competence, right? So I'm good. I know I'm good. My numbers are great. I'm performing well, but I don't really know why. I'm not sure if I could actually teach somebody else how to do the same thing. And if I do have a down week, month, quarter, et cetera, I'm not quite sure like what happened and how to get back on track. I'm not trying to make these things repeatable, right? I'm just kind of flowing and getting lucky, and luck. Sometimes people say I'd rather be lucky than good. I say BS, but I get
That's it. That's right. That's not a good statement.
But a lot of us are in that, right? Where, maybe we're at the right company, right place, right time, right territory. And, we have a sense for what we're doing, but we really don't know how to do it and how to repeat it and how to get back on track if we get off track, right? But again, that's a good place to be from the standpoint of, hey, listen, there's improvement there. I'm good at what I do. There's skill there. Now, if I can get into the self-awareness mode, wonderful. Right now, the place that I believe that we all want to try to aspire to be in to really continue to chase our potential and move that benchmark for where we can go in our capabilities is conscious competence, right? Of course, where I'm kicking tail and I have a really great formula. I have a really great system, right? Yeah. And even though that system I might be required to evolve from that system, but because I have a system, I have the ability to be nimble and be agile when the industry calls for it. So I know, and I'm not in the mortgage industry, but what I think I know, or at least what I understand about the last few years, everybody's gone through a pandemic, 2020, 2021, right? Was, if I'm a seller in that space that you guys are in, is probably a pretty darn good 2 years from the standpoint of just kind of taking orders, right? Just kind of, I'm kind of taking orders. Rates are, kind of right, and I'm just taking orders, right? And what ends up happening in a time like that, which is great, we're going to perform really well. But what it ends up doing is it impacts our adversity tolerance because the adversity kind of lowers in some ways, and our tolerance for it does too, right? And then 2022 comes, 2023 arrives, and we're in a world where it's going to get a little tougher, a little different. Maybe not tougher necessarily, but different, right? We're going to have to kind of really be leaning on relationships that we've created. We really have to be really skilled in the conversations we're having, right? We're really going to have to just have a plan for this kind of rate resistance that you guys are in, right? In this industry, right? And so you got to have a strategy. And the choices that you had in 2021, all of a sudden, those choices, that margin for error starts to shrink. And then choice becomes an illusion, right? All the skill sets that are required from a skill perspective for people in the industry that you guys are in have always existed, and they continue to exist. Nothing really changed with what's required of you. What's changed is the margin for error during a time like this. And so that conscious competence is critical. I don't care if it's mortgage, if it's pharmaceuticals, if it's tech, if it's financial services. That really kind of tends to be pretty standard across industries that we're helping and working with. And so this kind of competence tree, right, and the awareness around it is something that we've been teaching folks, whether it be individuals or leaders, that has really helped people kind of elevate and increase their adversity tolerance from this time, especially the folks in the middle, that mighty middle of the organization, right? That middle 60 performer that's like just on the edge, just on the cusp of performing. That's been something. So of all the frameworks and different things we're doing, neutral thinking, this kind of competence tree, that's something that's really been relevant over the last few years. Whether you've been an individual contributor and it's just about you and trying to perform, or whether it's you as a leader in a challenging time where you're trying to balance the challenge of both empathy and a drive for results. This conscious competence and this competence tree has been really critical. So I'll take a breath. I don't know what you think about that, but that's
you are speaking my language, my friend. This is why I'm so excited that we are partnering with you guys.
Yeah.
Is what you said is dead on. What you have in the mortgage industry today is back in 2020, 2021, when rates were super, super low. They had unconscious competence. That's exactly what it was. You could just show up and you could be successful. You weren't even really sure why you were successful, but man, you were making money hand over fist.
That's right.
In the market we're in now, where rates have dramatically increased, market's much tougher. What I'm seeing a lot of is that unconscious incompetence now, where they're not sure why they're not performing anymore, but they have to move to conscious competence. I'm going to use a quote. And I use this quote every time I train people. It's my favorite quote on success of all time. It's from Robert Ringer, because I think it says the truth. And it really speaks. I never realized this till you use the terminology. It really speaks to conscious competence. Mm-hmm. The statement he makes is that success is a matter of understanding and religiously practicing specific, simple habits that always lead to success. Now, one of the things that I teach leaders all the time is, if you want to have a successful organization, what you got to create a best practices mentality. And what that simply means is you analyze your sales teams, you analyze your operational teams, and you look at what is the right process, but more importantly, who does the best job in each piece of that process, and you take those best practices and you combine them between your employees. So you're using the wisdom of your employees basically to create a process, whether that's a sales process, whether that's an operational process that is based on best practices, so that you know why you're doing what you're doing. You've got a process that's defined, and now you're working, and I never even thought of the term, with conscious competence right now. You understand why you're succeeding because you've actually orchestrated it. You've articulated it through the way you build your process. And that's what we at Mortgage Champions have taught for 27 years, is a sales process that's absolutely proven to work based on the 1 million+ loan officers I've trained over the course of my career. So I love how you've articulated this into these 4 different categories, so people can start to think about, okay, where am I at in that stage? How do I move to the next one? And how do I get to that conscious competence mindset that I need to be in? So
you said something. I'm sorry, Dale, but you said something about
please go ahead.
Move to the next stage, and that's important because a lot of times people want to go from, let's say, unconscious incompetence all the way to conscious competence, right?
Right.
And that's hard
Impossible.
to do, right? Typically, you're going to go from unconscious incompetence to, learning and going to conscious incompetence. And maybe you're still not there yet, right? But I'm just aware of, okay, here are the behaviors I'm really trying to build. It might take time, and depending on the industry, this place, the environment you're in, it may be a 90-day thing. It might be 6 months. It might take some time, but that's okay. Yeah. You're building, right? And then you might, from there, you could get to conscious competence, right? From there, as long as there's conscious in front of it, you can get to competence, right? It's hard to get to competence when you're unconscious around it, right? When there's not a lot of self-awareness. So I just wanted to share that, because that got my juices flowing a little bit when you were saying about kind of how do I move from one stage to another? What are the tipping points from one stage to another to get there? Yeah. So.
Well, what I love about this conversation is it really goes back to what we said at the very beginning. It's mindset and methodology. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can have the right mindset, but if you don't have the right methodology, you're not going to succeed. You can have the right methodology, but if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to succeed. I see this a lot today in the mortgage industry, where I see loan officers that they have the ability, they have the skill base to be incredibly successful, but they're so worried about the market. They're so focused on the negativity out there that they can't come out of their shell to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So they're frozen. They get in this frozen mode where it's like, well, I know what I need to do. I need to do what I did 20 years ago to go back and build new partnerships and referral sources and all those things. But I'm just frozen right now because I don't want to do that anymore. I want it to be 2020 or 2021. Well, it's not, and it's not going to be. So you got to move. You got to move up that scale to get to the point where you say, okay, what do I consciously need to do to to be competent today to move in this thing, and how do I get that mindset there? So Harry, talk a little bit about it. If you today were to give advice to either a leader or a loan officer or anybody who works within a mortgage arena today facing, adversity. Now you said something really important earlier. You talked about, garbage in, garbage out. And I talk about this all the time. Getting up and turning on the news is the worst thing you can possibly do for yourself each and every day. Getting caught up in the negativity, that's not what you want to do. You want to fill your mind and you want to fill your day with as much positivity. Surround yourself with positive people. Make sure you're looking at things. And I know that for me as a speaker, I'm always taking the elements of the market and showing my lenders and showing my clients and the people that I train what are the positive things that are happening in the market that you can go attack and do well with, because everybody else is talking about the negative. If you were to give advice today to people in this marketplace, dealing with the adversity of the marketplace, what would be the one or two biggest tips you would give them today?
So I'd focus on language. That's the first thing I'll say. And what I mean by that is not necessarily what I'm saying to, if I'm a leader to my team, that's kind of secondary. Right. That's like the next page and that's the next chapter. But whether you're leader or individual contributor is really, really being maniacal, non-negotiable with my language. And I mentioned this early, this idea of a negativity diet. And I want to kind of give anybody who's listening that's interested in this, something really specific to try and do and commit themselves to. Right. Because I run a business around my mindset. Right. We're a mental fitness organization. I consider myself pretty skilled at this stuff, but I'm also human. and even in negative times and things that are challenging, personal or business, like I get caught up in this stuff too. And one thing I challenge people to do is kind of really, just like they would like with a Weight Watchers program, or as they try to lose weight and they want to calorie count and do their macros and all their things, right there, that's cool, because when you do that and you do it right and you track all these things, hopefully you'll see a result. For me, Dale, like, just to kind of take this analogy a little step further. So in 2021, I was significantly overweight. I don't know how it happened, right? I mean, COVID, sure, but I was just, traveling a lot and grinding. I mean, I had gotten to like 270 pounds, and I'm 6'2". I was a wide receiver in college, so I shouldn't be 270 pounds, right? I could have been an O lineman, right? And I got on the scale, and I just I hadn't been on a scale in a few years. I wasn't measuring anything, right? I was just going about my day and going about my life and and I felt like I was active, but I got to 270, got on the scale, scared the crap out of me, went to my wife and said, I got to lose like 60 pounds. And I was really just throwing a number out there. But once I kind of put together a process, I looked up, and 6 months later, I had 6 months, I lost about 55 pounds. And I was about my weight. So it was 215 back, right? I'm back. I felt like I was called Russ. I was like, hey, y'all need a wide receiver. I'm ready to go. But I really like that analogy, because for me, when the psychology around this process of losing the weight I wanted to lose, it really was a mindset thing, right? It wasn't just as easy as X's and O's and like, hey, I'm going to eat better, right? Because if that was that easy, I wouldn't have gotten to that number to begin with, right? And when it came down to it, the simplicity of really it was math, right? It was a calorie deficit that I was chasing, right? So I put some processes in place to kind of know that day by day, week by week, and giving myself some rest in there and some opportunities for cheat days to really be at a calorie deficit week over week over week, right? And it's the same thing with our mindset and our language, right? If we want to have language that works for us, we have to consume the right things and put ourselves in the right environment to do that. And so we needed to be at a negativity deficit, right? Yep. And again, doesn't mean I don't eat the foods I like necessarily, right? In that analogy, or go have some nice wine with my wife or whatever it might be. It just means that I know that these things that aren't great for me will have an impact on me, and I just had to be aware of when, how, who, what, when, where, why, and how does that impact my calorie deficit that I was looking for, in this case, my negativity deficit. So we mentioned it earlier about going on a negativity diet. One of the things that works against us the most is this guy, right? This little phone here, by the way, with my family on there. Beautiful. And as much as this is a great tool, and so are the TikTok and like my Twitter, my Instagram on here, they also can work against me. And so, but also that little green with the white cloud, that's that text message. Right. So I have I have people in my life that I text the most, most of my co-founders, my brother, my sister, my mother, my wife. And let's say DJ Heitzen, for example, who's a co-founder of Limitless Minds with us. We talk every day ad nauseam, like we're just constantly talking over text. And if I'm honest with myself, if I go in my text messages with DJ, as much as like we're positive people, there's a lot of negativity in here, right? Because we're always trying to challenge with the today's kind of effort. And I challenge people all the time to say, hey, go pick. And I'm going to ask every audience member to do this. Go pick the person that you talk to the most over text message, right? Because the reason I'm saying text message is because basically your negativity is journaled in this text message thread, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And go find the person you talk to the most. Again, it could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be a spouse, it could be a best friend, a co-founder, a coworker. And just pick a baseline. Let's say the last 2 weeks, right? And you can pick the baseline. It could be longer, it could be shorter. Take the last 2 weeks and just take a pad like this and just tally off how many negative things that you put out there, right? Include the emojis, Dale, right? Include the emojis in there too. And just nobody's judging you. Nobody's looking over your shoulder, right? Just it might be 50 things, right? No judgment, right? It might be 50 things. Cool, right? Great. No problem. But again, this goes to the conscious competence, right? What I want you to do over the next 2 weeks or whatever that baseline that you set was, right, is just be cognizant before you push send on that text message to that friend, that spouse, that mother, whoever it is. Just pull back, reset, and reframe if you can, right? If you can reframe that negativity into something more neutral, fact-based, truth-based, solution-oriented, right? And just reframe it. Don't tell this person you're doing all this work, right? Just work on that. Just be aware. Just check yourself, right? And then send the text off, right? And then after 2 weeks, I want you to go back and do that same count. Identify how many negative things you put out there. And I'm not going to ask you to eliminate it, go from 50 to 0. Just go from 50 to 25. Right. Just cut that number in half. Just improve.
Yeah.
Just cut that number in half. And then once you see that improvement, great, right? Attaboy, atta-girl, good stuff. And then do it again the next 2 weeks and try to cut it in half again. So now you're going from 50 to 25 to 12, 13 things, and then maybe do it another time, and now it's 6. And all of a sudden, you're really actually activating and applying this concept called neutral thinking. And if nothing else, what you're doing is you're being significantly less negative. And what's going to happen is, as a force multiplier, that individual that you've chosen is going to be less negative as well, right? And if they're that important in your life that they're the person that you communicate with the most, both of your lives are going to be optimized during that period of time, which is fantastic, right? And so that's something I would challenge people to do. And actually, Dale, one of the things that we're doing with Limitless Minds is we're continuing to build a platform digitally through technology where we can help people do this more automated through AI and so on and so forth. So that's another story for another day. but that's where we're realizing the power in our language. And if we can help individuals track this, just like they would track a calorie count, the steps they take in a day, right, with our wearables and so on and so forth, we can give people power, right, with that level of data to support when they're most optimal and how the language impacts that. So that's one thing that I would do. And that's what we're doing with teams now, whether it be through an approach like that or other ways to journal and keep track and be more consciously competent around our language. So that's something I wanted to share that everybody can do right now.
You know, there was so many drop the mic moments in what you just said there, just so many nuggets of wisdom that were just golden. And it's interesting because people don't talk enough about the language we use and the words we say. And people forget. I mention this to leaders all the time and to salespeople that I train across the country is whatever's coming out of your mouth, that's a reflection of what you're thinking. And if you're speaking negative, not only is it impacting every thought process you have, but everybody that's around you. You know, I use the example of throwing a rock in the middle of a pond. Okay, if you throw a rock in the middle of a pond, it creates a ripple effect, and that ripple effect, it doesn't just go a little bit; it goes all the way to all shores. It affects everything around that pond that happens, and it goes back to thinking about when we speak how we're impacting the people around us. So now they then become negative and it becomes this double-edged sword where we're just negativity is feeding negativity. And pretty soon before we know it, we're not performing anywhere near the level that we could because we get consumed by it very quickly. So I love that example you gave. I love that exercise that you gave the audience of really start with somebody that you trust and and the people that you probably wouldn't even normally be thinking you're talking negative to, and identify there where your negativity is at, and then apply that to all your other parts of life. Think about your emails. There's a gazillion emails in the business world. Oh my gosh, if you can start cleaning those emails up and doing the same kind of principle once you've done it on the text message, it can have a life-changing effect and a career-changing effect for both you and the people around you.
Right. It's not limited just to text. I think that's just one kind of medium that people are using a lot. To your point, email. Certainly, it's hard to track the things that we literally say out loud. That's something that we're working on from a technology perspective behind the scenes. But that is one way. And I think the other piece to this that's critical is the opportunity. You can't go at this stuff alone, right? Like whether it be life in general, right? The big, as we seek joy and happiness and fulfillment, all these different things. And we can't go at this life alone, right? And we shouldn't go at these little things alone too. Like our language, a lot of times it's the people around us that can give us the best feedback around how we're impacting them through our language, right? And my wife is the one who's listening to me all the time. Well, I think, I think she's listening. But she's the one that's around me a lot, for example. So like she who's better than her and some other people in my life to tell me like, hey, I know that you've been working towards, trying to be less negative. I noticed over the last week, that you've been speaking this way, right? Just a heads up, right? Whatever it might be. But that accountability partner, it's like the speedometer read down this road that that's right in front of my house called Evergreen Road. They got a couple different little plants of that, that speedometer read that makes you think that the cops are around the corner, right? That tells you if in a 25 you're going 38, you're going 40, you're going 42. And what do you do when you see that, right? You slow down, you tap the brakes, right? Same thing with our language. If we can have an accountability partner around us, right, that can help you kind of tap the brakes when you're going negative. There's certainly a lot of it's a competitive advantage is what it is. So that's what it's really about.
Yeah, it reminds me of a verse that I love out of book of Ephesians. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful to build others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." And I love that. I love that verse because it talks about how what we say should be encouraging to people around us. It should benefit them. And when we speak, everybody within earshot's hearing what we're saying. Yeah. So if we're in leadership, if we're in sales, we're influencing people dramatically by what comes out of our mouth. And it's really important to understand. I love the fact that you guys are teaching that to people in such specific ways to help them understand how to be more thoughtful about their language and the importance of how that affects your mind and your attitude. Positive, negative, neutral, whichever one it is, it's going to have an impact, no question about it. It's great stuff.
That's right. I love that. That's good.
All right. So let me share the last question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned Trevor Moad earlier, who was the co-founder of Limitless Minds with you. And I know Trevor has had massive, massive impact on your whole team. DJ and everybody that I've talked to internally with your team have mentioned Trevor multiple times. Just for a minute, if you would, share a little bit about the impact his mentorship has had. We talk about always at the end of our show, mentorship and the importance of mentorship and why we need mentors in our life. Can you share a little bit about maybe the mentorship that Trevor had with you and the importance and the impact that had on your life?
Sure. I mean, and just to, again, clarify for listeners, I mean, Trev, in 2019, he was diagnosed with some cancer. That he fought valiantly for about a 2-year period. And of course, COVID hit, right? 3 months after that diagnosis. And I think he was more scared about the pandemic, and its impact on him, more so than the cancer itself. And he fought and he grinded and he did his thing. And he was kind of quiet about it and didn't want a lot of people to know. And it took him in September of 2021. And what's interesting, it's almost like a great musician, like, it's almost like sometimes the music has more of an impact when they're gone, and they're selling more music than they did before and all these different things. And Trevor has a similar type of impact, I feel like, right? Because when he passed away, the amount of individuals, many names that folks listen to this podcast would know, right? Some of the best and brightest athletes across a ton of different sports, from football, basketball, baseball, tennis, et cetera, track. Came out of the woodworks on like the impact and really specific impact that he had on them. For me, Trevor was one of the best speakers that I had ever heard, which was great. I've seen a lot of great speakers from Simon Sinek to Angela Duckworth and, I've seen Adam Grant, all these different people. I mean, there's so many great speakers out there. He was one of the best because of his authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And he grew up in this space. His dad was a guy named Bob Moad, who was kind of one of the founders of like this self-esteem space that was kind of started in like the 70s. Chicken Soup for the Soul. I don't know if Dale, you're probably familiar with Chicken Soup.
Absolutely. Love that book.
Yeah. So Bob Moad was one of the original contributors for Chicken Soup for the Soul. So Trevor grew up around the dinner table talking about this stuff, right? And he would take his career into it. But I mean, his impact is multiple, exponential, and as he's gone now, we really begin to like realize the legacies that he's left behind, and really gives us as co-founders with Trev like an opportunity to allow his legacy to carry on.
Great.
And then again, change the way that people think. That then we believe will change the way that people talk to themselves and to others, and then ultimately change the behaviors that are required for us to kind of win. And then ultimately, then we'll worry about results and outcomes, right? And so, I mean, I think he's a pioneer in the space. It's a shame that he's gone so early in his mid 40s, because I think we're all missing out on really a genius in this area. But he leaves us behind. We're going to continue to carry on his legacy and impact people. But that's the cool thing, is that Trevor didn't really want recognition. I think certainly he wanted to be relevant, like many of us do, but really he just wanted to make an impact authentically. He really just wanted to make an impact, and he would do it quietly. He would do it real quietly behind the scenes. He was kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? You never really knew what he looked like, right? And now, but so yeah, I mean, he's a special guy. We have the fire in our belly to continue to take this organization where we want to go is even, burns even brighter and burns even stronger now. So yeah, it's a responsibility for us to do that. Yeah.
I wish I'd have had the honor to meet him. It just sounds like just an amazing guy from everything I've heard. And it reminds us again that, every one of us are leaving a legacy, positive or negative. We all do. In every interaction we have in every day with people, that's part of our legacy. So I want to remind all the listeners that, mentorship is important. You need mentors around you. That makes a major difference. And remember that the way that you're working with other people and the way you're influencing other people and the way you're talking to other people and the way you're treating other people is establishing your legacy. I think sometimes we think legacy is a word for later in life, but we don't know we're going to make it later in life. We never know what day is our final day. We want to set our legacy every day as we work through it.
That's right.
Well, Harry, this has been I have loved every minute of this interview. I so appreciate your humility and your heart and your wisdom today. Share with the audience how they could utilize Limitless Minds, where they would go to purchase, things from you guys. I fully endorse what you guys do, and just a raving fan and looking forward to working with you more. Could you share with them how they would go about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks know us as like a B2B type of platform, right? Where we work with companies and organizations. If you lead a sales team, if you lead a team of sales trainers, sales enablement folks, if you are responsible for those individuals, you may be a COO, a CEO, an organization. If bottom line and impact is important to you, right, at your organization, whether you make the decisions or not, reach out to us. Because we can help your team build a framework around adversity tolerance. Like you mentioned, it's not just it's the mindset and methodology, right? A mindset strategy is just as important as a business strategy, right? Equally important. They have to really be able to run in parallel. And so we can help organizations. We're with that. We really are a performance solution through mindset training. We tend to really enter into organizations through sales teams, both individuals, contributors, and leaders. So that's us. You can reach out to us at limitlessminds.com. Hell, you can email me directly at harry@limitlessminds.com, and I will respond. And then as a consumer, if you're just one person out there saying, dang, I want some of this. I want some of this action, right? I want some of this love. We actually have an app that you can download, Android and iOS, called Club Limitless. And Club Limitless is kind of like a Peloton for mental fitness, if you will, right? So
very cool.
You get access to coaches, some of the best and brightest, literally on the globe, and you get on demand and live access to these coaches. You can jump into the Mind Gym and work on your mind and condition your mind and be more mentally fit. So check that out. It's a subscription, per month, a few dollars per month per person. So check that out. You can find us on social media. We're all over LinkedIn, Limitless Minds. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter and so on and so forth at Limitless Minds. So come check us out. But you can reach out to me directly, of course, and come find us. But we're excited about the future. And like I said, check out Trevor's books. It Takes What It Takes is the first one. You don't have to read them in order necessarily, but if you want to, it takes what it takes. The second one is Getting to Neutral. Both of them are really applicable. The second book, Dale, kind of unveils this. It really unveils, honestly, kind of what Trevor was going through individually, right? As kind of one of the mindset gurus across the world. He too, being human, is going through it, right? And how he was able to apply this to his everyday, and going and battling cancer. And it really makes it real, in my opinion. So check those out. You can do audiobook or they got them in hardback and so on and so forth. But check those out for those that are interested. You can also, if you're also interested in Trev and just in general, you can find him on YouTube, and he does a lot of he's done a lot of interviews and podcasts. So you can kind of get some interesting kind of framework from him and whatnot. So, but we're just really grateful that to partner with you guys and to be on today with you. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute delight, a blessing to me, and a true honor. And for those of you listening, I know a lot of you are executives that I work with. Feel free to contact me too if you want to, and I'll be glad to connect you with these guys. They're a class act, and they're doing some incredible work to help organizations around the world. So, Harry, thank you. Blessings to you. Appreciate you. Looking so much forward to getting to know you more over the years, and hopefully seeing you down in Louisville, where I've got kids down there. We're gonna have to hook up for lunch or dinner when I'm down there next time for sure.
Right, dude. Let's do it. Get maybe a little bourbon and hot brown down here.
There we go.
But Dale, one last thing I want to say to your audience, right? Because the folks that are listening, if they're listening to this, folks that are listening to this, they are. I'm certain they're seeking a competitive edge, right? Both professionally and personally, right? Just like I am, right? Just a constant quest for knowledge. That's why one would engage in content like this, because they're just seeking continued knowledge. I don't care if you're 22, 42, 62, anywhere in between and around. Like we're all
102,
102, right? Seeking that competitive advantage, but a lot of the folks on here are really successful, right? A lot of folks that are listening to this, they felt, they know, they can smell success, and I want to encourage those that are even in the middle of kind of a successful, career or success around them, is that one thing that Trevor would say, and that I always say, and because of it is, you don't have to be sick to get better. You don't have to be sick to get it. Don't wait for the challenge to arrive to be prepared to train for it, right? It's all in preparation, right? And so the reason why mindset's important is not because it's easy. It's easy when we're in the midst of success. It's easy when the numbers are right. It's easy when the rates are low, right? If you will, right? It's really what really is going to show up in your character and who you are and your tech is when the chips are down, right? And we don't know when that's coming, right? But adversity is not adversity is not an if thing; it's a when, and it's just a matter of how big it is. It's micro, macro. It could be just bad traffic on the way to a big meeting. It could be something like an illness, anywhere in between, right? So we don't know when it's coming. So let's be prepared for it. You don't have to be sick to get better, and that's kind of like a growth mindset thing. But the reality is that I'm not. I ask people all the time, like, hey, do you want to reach your potential? Everybody says, yeah, I want to reach my potential. And I say, why? And I mean that because it's a trick question, right? Because certainly we want to reach our potential, but really what I want to do is I want my potential to increase. I want to move my potential. I want my potential to grow. And then what I really want to do is close the gap between my potential and what I actualize, right? And I want to keep closing that gap while my potential rises. I want to close the gap on what I'm actually doing, what I'm actually able to accomplish. Yep. And what's going to be required of that is this mentality around, I don't have to be sick to get better. I can be on a constant quest for knowledge. I can ask the questions. I can reinvent myself along the way. So that's the challenge I wanted to leave for folks, right? Whether it be around their language or the people around them, and how much news they're consuming, all these different things we talked about. It's just about being on a constant quest for knowledge and realizing you don't have to be sick to get better. So you share that.
You know, that is a great way to end the show. You know, I've told people this many times. My wife Laurel and I have had marriage counseling our whole life, and people say, "Is there something wrong?" Well, sometimes, but no, not really.
Yeah.
We're just going because we want to stay together forever. And 31 years later, it's still working. So, you know, it's constantly wanting to improve. Even if things are going well, you want to keep yourself at that level and keep getting better. And I love how you articulated that by just closing that gap every single time. So, Harry, thank you again. Great to have you. God bless you, my friend. Love what you're doing. And I hope that I get to see you again real soon.
Likewise, brother. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, thanks so much for catching this episode of Betting 1000 with Dale Vermillion, featuring, of course, Harry Wilson, the CEO and co-founder of Limitless Minds. Now, if you happen to be catching this episode live, we actually timed it so that at the very end of this episode, you could jump right over to Limitless Live. It's a free 30-minute coaching session that Limitless Minds offers on their website, their social channels, as well as through their app. All you have to do is just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the Club Limitless app, and then you can just click on this video icon right here, and it'll take you to be able to watch the broadcast live if they're broadcasting live, which they do every single day at 10:30 Central on weekdays. So be sure to catch that session and get a little bit more information on how you can improve your own neutral thinking or help you implement a neutral thinking mindset amongst your team. Thanks as always for listening and watching. If you haven't already, subscribe in your favorite podcasting app. And if you enjoy the content, share it with a colleague, as well as leave us a review or 5-star rating. It's much appreciated. We'll see you in the next episode.